Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening from wherever you're watching or listening. My name is Caleb Glick. I'm a lawyer here in the great state of Texas with a Calhoun School of Law to bring you a lot of information that plenty of bad folks would rather you not have. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we'll provide another installment into our series on Mr. Algernon Sidney's Discourses Concerning Government. Now, we're going on to Chapter 1, Section 17, so if you haven't gone back and watched Sections 1 through 16, I highly encourage you to do so, because Mr. Algernon Sidney's work, not just Discourses Concerning Government, but his works in general, significantly impacted how the founding generation thought and the principles that they used whenever they went about drafting the U.S. Declaration of Independence, the Articles of the Confederation, and the U.S. Constitution. So if you want to know the individual that not entirely, but played a significant role in formulating how the founding generation thought, thus really understanding the intent behind the documents they created, consulting his work will be greatly to your advantage in that endeavor. So let's go ahead and jump on over to his work. Like I said, we're going to Section 17. Now, Section 17's it's at that length where it's almost too long to read entirely, also a little too short to just extract the most important principles. So just to be safe, we're going to go ahead and read through the entire section, not skipping any lines, nothing of the sort. As always, I encourage you, go read this section for yourself, just so that way any concerns about mischaracterization, misinterpretation are completely thrown out the window. Lastly, the reason we're going to be reading this section in its entirety is he makes some very, very important arguments in this section. So if I did go through and extract the most important principles, it probably would be the entire section highlighted, if not one or two sentences excluded. And you'll probably see just how quintessential this section is after you read this summary that he provided. So Section 17, summarized at the front of the section, says, God having given the government of the world to no one man, nor declared how it should be divided, left it to the will of man. He says this, our author's next inquiry, so he's talking about Robert Filmer in Patriarcha. Our author's next inquiry is, quote, what becomes of the right of fatherhood in case the crown should escheat want of an heir, whether it doth not escheat to the people? His answer is, quote, 'tis but the negligence or ignorance of the people to lose the knowledge of the true heir. And a little below, quote, the power is not devolved to the multitude. No, the kingly power escheats on independent heads of families. All such prime heads have power to consent in the uniting or conferring their fatherly right of sovereign authority on whom they please, and he that is so elected claims not his power as a due native from the people, but as being substituted by God, from whom he receives his royal charter of universal father. Now we're back to what Mr. Sidney's going to say. In my opinion, before he had asked, what should be done in case the crown should escheat for want of an heir, he ought to have proved that there had been a man in the world who had the right in himself, and telling who he was, have showed how it had been transmitted for some generations, that we might know where to seek his heir. And before he accused the multitude of ignorance and negligence in not knowing this heir, he ought to have informed us how it may be possible to know him, or what it would avail us if we did know him, for 'tis in vain to know to whom a right belongs that never was, never can be executed. But we may go farther and affirm that as the universal right must have been in Noah and Shem, if in any, who never exercised it, we have reason to believe there never was any such thing. And having proved from Scripture and human history that the first kingdoms were set up in a direct opposition to this right, by Nimrod and others, he that should seek and find their heirs would only find those who by a most accursed wickedness had usurped and continued a dominion over their fathers, contrary to the laws of God and nature. And we should neither be more wise nor more happy than we are, though our author should furnish us with certain and authentic genealogies, by which we might know the true heirs of Nimrod and the 72 kings that went from Babylon, who, as he supposes, gave beginning to all the kingdoms of the earth. Moreover, if the right be universal, it must be in one. For the universe being but one, the whole right of commanding it cannot at the same time be in many and proceed from the ordinance of God or of man. It cannot proceed from the ordinance of God, for he doth nothing in vain. He never gave a right that could not be executed. No man can govern that which he does not so much as know. No man did ever know all the world, no man therefore did or could govern it. And none could be appointed by God to do that which is absolutely impossible to be done, for it could not consist with his wisdom. We find this in ourselves. It were a shame for one of us poor, weak, short-sighted creatures in the disposal of our affairs to appoint such a method as were utterly ineffectual for the preservation of our families, or destructive to them. And the blasphemy of imputing to God such an ordinance as would be a reproach to one of us can suit only with the wicked and impudent fury of such as our author who delights in monsters. This also shows us that it cannot be from men. One or a few may commit follies, but mankind does not universally commit and perpetually persist in any. They cannot, therefore, by a general and permanent authority, enact that which is utterly absurd and impossible. Or if they do, they destroy their own nature and can no longer deserve the name of reasonable creatures. There can be therefore no such man in the folly of seeking him, or his heir that never was may be left to the disciples of Filmer. The difficulties are as great, if it be said, the world might be divided into parcels, and we are to seek the heirs of the first possessors, not professors. Sometimes that SF, similarity or similar shape, still stumbles me. Seek the heirs of the first possessors. For besides that no man can be obliged to seek that which cannot be found, all men knowing that, quote, caliginosa, oh, it's Latin, okay, caliginosa nocti haceat permit Deus, and that the genealogies of mankind are so confused that unless possibly among the Jews, we have reason to believe there is not a man in the world who knows his own original. It could be of no advantage to us, though we knew that of everyone. The division would be of no value, unless it were at the first rightly made by him who had all the authority in himself, which does nowhere appear, and rightly deduced to him, who according to that division claims a right to the parcel he enjoys. And I fear our author would terribly shake the crowns in which the nations of Europe are concerned if they should be persuaded to search into the genealogies of their princes and to judge of their rights. According to the proofs, they should give titles rightly deduced by succession of blood from the 72 first kings, from whom our author fancies all the kingdoms of the world to be derived. Besides, though this were done, it would be to no purpose. For the 72 were not sent out by Noah, nor was he or his sons of that number, but they went or were sent from Babylon where Nimrod reigned, who, as has been already proved, neither had, nor could ever have, any right at all, but was a mighty hunter, even a proud and cruel tyrant, usurping a power to which he had no right, and which was perpetually exercised by him and his successors against God and his people, from whence I may safely conclude that no right can ever be derived, and may justly presume it will be denied by none who are of better morals and of more sound principles. See, it stumbled me there again. More sound principles in matters of law and religion than Filmer or Calhoun. Since 'tis no less absurd to deduce a right from him that had none, than to expect pure and wholesome waters from a filthy, polluted, and poisonous fountain. If it be pretended that some other man since Noah had this universal right, it must either remain in one single person as his right heir, or be divided. If in one, I desire to know who he is, and where we may find him, that the empire of the world may be delivered to him. But if he cannot be found, the business is at an end. For every man in the world may pretend himself to be the person, and the infinite controversies arising thereupon can never be decided, unless either the genealogies of every one from Noah were extant and proved, or we had a word from heaven with a sufficient testimony of his mission who announceth it. When this is done, will be time to consider what kind of obedience is due to this wonderful, happy, and glorious person. But whilst the first appears to be absolutely impossible, and we have no promise or reason to expect the other, the proposition is to be esteemed one of our author's empty whimsies, which cannot be received by mankind unless they come all to be possessed, with an epidemical madness, which would cast them into that, still stumbles me, would cast them into that which Hobbes calls bellum omnium contra omnes. Thomas Hobbes. We're definitely going to be going over his ideas in the future, especially the Hobbes versus Rousseau debate. So important to the founding, to the founding generation's ideas. When every man's sword would be drawn against every man, and every man's against him, if God should so abandon the world to suffer them to fall into such misery. If this pretended right be divided, it concerns us to know by whom, when, how, and to whom. For the division cannot be of any value unless the right was originally in one. That he did exercise this right in making the division, that the parcels into which the world is divided are according to the allotment that was made, and that the persons claiming them by virtue of it are the true heirs of those to whom they were first granted. Many other difficulties may be alleged no less inextricable than these, but this seeming sufficient for the present, I shall not trouble myself with more, promising that when they shall be removed, I will propose others, or confessing my errors, yield up the cause. But if the dominion of the whole world cannot belong to any one man, and every one have an equal title to that which should give it, or if it did belong to one, none did ever exercise it in governing the whole, or dividing it. Or if he did divide it, no man knows how, when, or to whom. So that they who lay claim to any parcels can give no testimony of that division, nor show any better title than other men derived from his first progenitor, to whom it is said to have been granted, and that we have neither a word nor the promise of a word from God to decide the controversies arising thereupon, nor any prophet giving testimony of his mission that takes upon him to do it, the whole fabric of our author's patriarchal dominion falls to the ground. And they who propose these doctrines, which, if they were received, would be a root of perpetual and irreconcilable hatred in every man against every man, can be accounted no less than ministers of the devil, though they want the abilities he has sometimes infused into those who have been employed upon the like occasions. And we may justly conclude that God, having never given the whole world to be governed by one man, nor prescribed any rule for the division of it, nor declared where the right of dividing or subdividing that which every man should terminate. Oh, I see. Let me try rereading that again. Nor declared where the right of dividing or subdividing that which every man has should terminate. We may safely affirm that the whole is forever left to the will and discretion of man. We may enter into, form, and continue in greater or lesser societies as best pleases ourselves. The right of paternity as to dominion is at an end, and no more remains but the love, veneration, and obedience, which, proceeding from a due sense of the benefits of birth and education, have their root in gratitude, and are esteemed sacred and inviolable by all that are sober and virtuous. And as 'tis impossible to transfer these benefits by inheritance, so 'tis impossible to transfer the rights arising from them. No man can be my father but he that did beget me. And 'tis as absurd to say I owe that duty to one who is not my father, which I owe to my father, as to say he did beget me, who did not beget me. For the obligation that arises from benefits can only be to him that conferred them. 'Tis in vain to say the same is due to his heir, for that can take place only when he is but one, which in this case signifies nothing. For if I, being the only son of my father, inherit his right and have the same power over my children as he had over me, if I had 100 brothers, they must all inherit the same, and the law of England, which acknowledges one only heir, is not general but municipal, and is so far from being general as the precept of God and nature, that I doubt whether it was ever known or used in any nation of the world beyond our island. The words of the apostle, quote, "If we are children, we are therefore heirs and co-heirs with Christ, are the voice of God in nature. And as the universal law of God in nature is always the same, every one of us who have children have the same right over them as Abraham, Isaac, and children had, Jacob, excuse me, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob had over theirs. And that right, which was not devolved to any one of them, but inherited by them all, I mean the right of father as father, not the peculiar promises which were not according to the law of nature, but the election of grace, is also inherited by every one of us and ours, that is, by all mankind. But if that which could be inherited was inherited by all, and it be impossible that a right of dominion over all can be due to everyone, then all that is or can be inherited by everyone is that exemption from the dominion of another, which we call liberty, and is the gift of God, nature. So hopefully you can see why I just elected to read the entire section. So many important points. If you have any questions about what he said in section 17, questions about what was said in the preceding sections, or maybe there's a legal topic you'd like me to cover in a future lecture, go ahead and post those down in the comments, because the entire purpose of the Calhoun School of Law is to equip you with the necessary skills and information such as this to combat any sort of lawfare that will be waged against you, your loved ones, or your hard-earned property. So please, if you have any questions at all, go ahead and post them down in the comments. Excellent. So my name is Caleb Glick. I'm a lawyer here in the great state of Texas with the Calhoun School of Law to bring you a lot of information that plenty of bad folks would rather you not have. I hope you enjoyed this lecture, and if not, while you're down in the comments, go ahead and let me know how I can do better so I can best serve that purpose of helping you. I hope you'll have a wonderful day, and until I see y'all in the next lecture for the next topic, I bid you all farewell.